Yeah, it's been a while.
I know. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started in just a moment. We're going to allow folks a minute to get into the room now that we've opened it up. We're so glad all of you are here with us on what is a very sunny and beautiful day here on the West Coast for me. I'm Brianna Blaney. This is my co-founder, Arya Han,
Hi, so happy to be here.
and we'll give it just a couple more minutes, Arya, and then we will get started. Awesome. Okay, great. Kathy's here from Quebec. Cameras, Alberta. Love it.
Yeah,
This is
coast to
great to
coast.
see.
That's great.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Okay, Arya, let's get started and we can invite more folks in as they join.
Sounds great. Welcome, everybody. We are so thrilled to be here. This is actually one of my favorite topics to talk about, which is innovation capital. Um, I am a big proponent of developing creative products for efficiency, for climate change, for the betterment of Canada and the quality of our life. And so that's really what we're going to focus on today is how we can get you the funds to make that magic happen. A couple of housekeeping things first. We are recording today's session and you will receive a copy. So if you have to duck out early, please do not stress at all. And we will have time at the end of today's session for questions. So please share your questions in the Q&A. We absolutely don't want to miss anything. So for those of you who are not familiar with Pocketed, we are a platform service that helps you find, identify, and apply for successfully all sorts of funding opportunities, grants, tax credits, competitions, and more, all through all across the country. So we have one of the most one of the largest and most active databases. And so Pocketed was co-founded by myself and my fearless CEO, Brianna Blaney here, who is absolutely brilliant. And if you've ever got to interact with her, you know exactly what I'm talking about. She is driving us forward and, continuing to really push on improving every single aspect of our business. And I absolutely would not be anywhere near where we are without her. So I am Pocketed CTO, so responsible for our product and technology, but again, in close collaboration with Brianna here. So it is really and truly a team effort. It's one of the things that I would say I'm most proud of is the team that we have here at Pocketed that is making this funding magic happen for everybody. So later in today's session, we'll also share a code that will give you free access to our subscription. So please stay tuned. And again, you'll get the video copy. So if you have to duck out early, you'll still get a chance to get that code. And so to kick us off, I want to share a little bit about my own funding journey, both throughout my career and within Pocketed. So I actually come out of academia. I have a PhD in metagenomics. And what this and academia and research runs on grants. That is the lifeblood of grants. Every single lab at a university is actually responsible for funding their own research and their own students. And so that means applying for grants and getting rejected for grants from a very early age and being successful at grants. And so I have been a part of about $7 million in successful grant funding across my career, which is very fortunate and lucky. And that's powered everything from innovation, IP funding, wage subsidies, all of that. There's really, really so much funding out there if you know how to access it and you understand kind of how that works. And so we're really gonna focus on that. Pocketed ourselves, we actually use a ton of grant funding as well. So we're customers of our own software and our own product. So we're about at $1 million and counting, and we're 3 years old. So there is just so much there to help you grow. And we have heard from our 15,000 clients across Canada about kind of the pain of grants, the complication of grants. And so we're here today just to demystify that a little bit in the innovation space in particular. So that was a very long intro. What we're really going to try to cover today is defining innovation. So let's understand how innovation is perceived by the government and by Canadians and how it's valued in the context of funding, how you navigate innovation funding, like what are the steps we can take here. And then let's let's talk actions. Like, what do you actually do next to make sure that you get that funding, secure it, and you get it into your bank account so that you can get up and running and making use of that. All right. So, what we want to start with is an overview of the landscape. So, what's really out there when it comes to grants for companies? And it's a lot. There's over $5.9 billion annually every single year that is allocated for grants to small businesses. And so this is in the forms of grants, tax credits, and other incentives. So it's really across the board. And it focuses on a couple of key areas. And so clean tech in particular, can be a surprise. I live in the Okanagan actually, and it was 42 degrees this week. And so climate change, we are feeling the consequences of that. So anything that is in clean tech, green tech, the government is really prioritizing that. AI can't be a surprise to anybody. The announcement and release of ChatGPT really took the world by storm. Software development, so anything in that technology phase, and then advanced manufacturing. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the next slides too, but COVID really revealed a gap for Canadians that we moved a lot of manufacturing out of the country. And so bringing that back in an advanced way is a big priority. And then biology and life sciences. So that is everything from understanding our environment and our world around us to medicine, pharmaceuticals, and things like that that really do impact our lives. So we're going to talk a little bit about trends and opportunities, and then we will dive into some case studies. So one of the main goals of grants is to increase Canada's global competitiveness. And so what we mean by that is Canada lags behind in IP and technology and productivity. And so we're trying to maintain our spot in the world as being a global competitor in technological advancements. And so anything to kind of help us perform on that global stage, there's probably funding for that. Next up, we have national security. And national security actually goes well beyond what you think of as defense. So, Canada's not known for our super mighty military, but our national security actually extends into food security. So we see a lot of money being poured into agriculture, agri-food, supply chain. COVID exposed a lot of holes in our infrastructure in this particular space. We have a huge space. It is sparsely populated. We've got to be able to move food products from end to end to feed our population. We're lucky we actually produce more calories than we need to feed our population, but we got to get it to the right places. Sectors of importance. And so really what that means is that previous slide that we were showing where we said, it's AI, it's global, it's clean tech, it is advanced manufacturing. In order to achieve global competitiveness and national security, we really need to focus on these sectors of importance. And so we're seeing a lot of grants, tax credits, a lot of focus on these particular sectors. The other thing we're seeing in grant trends right now is increased competition for the grants. So just like COVID exposed holes in our infrastructure, it also, I think, exposed small businesses across Canada to the fact that there is money out there and there might be more than they previously thought. And so we're seeing programs that pre-COVID had a hard time finding enough businesses to take their money, be subscribed in 48 hours after launching. And so this concept of increased competition is huge, and we're going to talk about how to overcome that. And then the final one we want to touch on is public scrutiny. And so as kind of our collective consciousness was raised about the money that is going to small businesses, Canadians very rightly are asking questions. Where is my money going? Who's getting my money? What am I getting for that money? When we say we're supporting businesses, what does that look like? And so they're asking for more transparency. And so we're seeing greater pushes across agencies really to get that transparency out there. And we think that's a good thing. Transparency, it's very important in finance and government money in particular. And so it might seem, we actually see this as a huge positive. Today, there are over 1,800 funding programs open And so this number changes daily. But you look at this number and it's huge. There are 1,800 programs open today accepting applications for money for small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses in Canada. Of those 1,800, there are 72% of them are focused on innovation companies. And that's why I said I really love the topic of today, because we get to talk about this huge amount of funding and opportunity that's available. And so again, you're in the right space, you're here, you're doing innovation, fabulous, absolutely great. There's lots of things for you. We see four major barriers to successfully accessing grants. And Brianna's going to dive a little bit more into some of these topics here shortly. But the first one is access to capital. So we're often the bearers of bad news, especially with very, very early ventures where we say, look, almost every single grant, there are a few exceptions, but almost every single grant in Canada works on a reimbursement model. You pay up front, you submit your receipts, proof that you did with the money what you said you were going to do with it, and then you're reimbursed. And so you really have to do that access to capital to use grants. We've seen companies, get approved for $70,000 and they just can't quite use it. The second major barrier is the cost of labor in Canada is high. So is the cost of living. These things go hand in hand. And so we're seeing more and more companies actually offshore their research and development teams. And what that means is as soon as you take those costs, that money is not flowing within Canada and it's flowing outside of the country. There's not grants for that. You aren't eligible for tax credits on that money. And so the government really is trying to keep that labor here at home. So that's another kind of access to or barrier to accessing grants. The third is fundable activities. Understanding what it is about your business that you can fund with grants and things that you can't. And Brianna's going to spend a bunch of time on that, so I won't dwell on that right now. But this is a very key thing. What your company does as a whole, the product that you're offering is less important than the activities and the impact that you want to have using this money. So they're outcomes based. And so we always really want to be focused on outcomes and activities. And then thirdly, the time and process. And by time, yes, founder time is absolutely precious. Brianna and I both feel that in our souls on a daily basis. But also dealing with the Canadian government has its own time and process challenges, especially as grants get into larger amounts, 6-7 figures. You're looking at 6 to 24-month timelines often to get entirely through the process. And, we say in general, reporting and timelines should scale with the amount of money you're getting. So if you're getting those $5,000, $7,000 grants, should be fairly quick and fairly low barrier. And as they get bigger, it really, really goes up higher. So we're here to help. So with that, I will pass it over to Brianna.
Awesome. Thanks, Aria. And I totally agree that time factor is real. We had a number of approvals come in for clients that their applications were submitted to large programs over a year ago. And only now are they hearing back with approvals. So the timeline factor is real. And you're seeing even mid-sized programs are behind in their review processes. The government's inundated. The volume of applications coming in for the same money has just absolutely gone through the roof. So it's more competitive than ever before, as Aria was flagging. So let's talk more about fundable activities. Aria already shared one of the biggest things we spend time educating founders on is how do I think about grants in context of my business and what's going to be relevant to pursue. Because again, there is, thousands of programs open, but you need to find the ones that are not only eligible for your business to pursue, but that are relevant and competitive for you to actually win. So fundable activities is an important concept to understand. And for innovation companies like all of you here today, we want to provide some examples of that. So first is environmental and sustainable practices. Then we have commercialization, as well as training and workforce development, infrastructure and capital investments, research and development, export and international expansion, and then collaboration and partnership. So these are some of the core categories. What does this actually look like and what does this mean? So under the category of environmental and sustainable practices, this can include clean technology projects. So initiatives aimed at reducing environmental impacts. So anything related to carbon capture, renewable energy projects, sustainable manufacturing. There's a ton of grant funding associated with these types of activities and projects. So if that sounds and resonates for you like something you're investing in your business, whether you're a clean tech company or not, there are likely programs to subsidize those projects. Similarly, energy efficiency improvement. So we're seeing a lot of rebates even right now around electrification. So, going away from gas-based furnaces into heat pumps, for example. For commercialization, it's all about bringing innovation to market. We want to figure out how can we bring our R&D innovations out of that R&D stage and actually commercialize that. So you see funding around pilots, and those are often quite provincially focused as well as sector focused. So not across the board available, but there's a lot of money around commercialization, including from large funders, where some of everyone's most favorite and well-known R&D funders are known for their R&D funding, but continue to pilot new programs around commercialization because we're realizing there's a productivity gap in Canada. So it's not enough to just build innovation. How do we commercialize the innovation? And the government is putting money behind helping us do that in our businesses. Training and development. So we need to continue to upskill our workforces. So you see programs in every single province related to skill training. So you can subsidize training, for example, in BC, where I am, to the tune of 80% of your spend on those training programs. So it's a great thing for many of you who are later stage and or looking to build new skills on your existing team. Perhaps you've maxed out of all of the wage subsidies you can access for folks, and you're looking for how can I get more out of my people. Training can be a great tool for that. And there are always grants to subsidize training. It continues to be a core government priority, recognizing the need to reskill our workforce in Canada. Infrastructure and capital investments, the programs here look different always. So it's quite interesting navigating this specific landscape. I was working with a client earlier this week who's in the building space or in the construction space, and they're looking at funding that they can leverage for themselves for a new space they've bought and are building out, but also for their clients. And there's funding around all types of CapEx, whether it's purchasing and installing new equipment, around even your ICT, information communication technology practices, around increasing and improving accessibility in your physical and built environment. So there is all sorts of capital being deployed in this space too, both in adapting your spaces, implementing new technology, but also in upgrading your facilities. Research and development, innovative technologies, and product development continue to be big, big emphases. And everyone here, given that you came to an innovation webinar, I'm guessing are doing something in the R&D space to some extent. So this is developing new technologies, particularly in those high priority subsectors Aria identified: AI, biotechnology, clean tech. They're all really, really fundable. And that is not just through the scientific research and experimental development tax credit, the SHRED tax credit that most of us are probably very familiar with, and Aria will share more about later for anyone that's perhaps newer to that, but also through various grant programs that will subsidize other elements of activities there as well. And I think, one of the areas that we've been really successful with clients is helping you identify, how do I maximize the combination and stacking of these programs so that I'm not claiming SHRED on something that I can grant fund and vice versa. So you're getting as much money as possible from all those programs. And then product development. So whether that's building new products or really materially improving existing products, there is often funding for this as well, particularly in certain sectors. So you're seeing a lot of funding right now being dedicated, again, to clean tech, even to ag tech. We're seeing big evolution in agriculture across the country. Export and international expansion remains a priority for the government. Most of you are probably familiar with the Can Export program. It's one example of a funding program that really subsidizes you building relationships and spending time in new international markets that you're looking to expand into. So that is one channel, but it's also, how do I translate my materials, my marketing materials, build a relevant marketing strategy, build relationships, access different production if that's where you need to go to get the production support that you need. So definitely a big area of fundable activities. And then collaboration and partnerships. And Aria is going to talk more about this, because partnerships and collaborations in various forms often show up in innovation funding at a volume and in a way they don't for other sectors. So the government loves to see collaborations between private and academia, between private nonprofit and academia, between large private, small private academia. So lots of consortiums are being formed and required in order to pursue some programs. And over the last 3 and a bit years of building Pocketed, it's an area that we've seen people really struggle with for various reasons: concerns about IP control, concerns about just the reality of navigating partnerships, finding the right partners, so many justified reasons for why we feel uncomfortable with partnerships and those consortiums, but they are an important leverage tool for you to understand to access some of the bigger, juicier programs, including lots of the supercluster funding. So those are some of the largest grants you can access in Canada. And again, we are going to talk more about this, and Aria can even share some of her own experiences in this space. So that's what's fundable. And wherever we want to understand what is fundable, it's helpful to understand what is not fundable. And we are often the bearers of bad news. And I can tell you every single day we get asked about most items on this list. So I'm going to run through a few. I'm not going to read them all out. All of you can take a look at this slide. But business as usual is the broadest category of things that are not funded. So that includes funding your existing employees. It includes paying for your utilities, your rent, just your daily costs to operate your business. The government isn't going to fund that. That's not what they're looking to fund. They want to fund net new. They want to fund growth, expansion, digitization, activities in your business that are driving you forward to achieving new outcomes that also have a benefit to Canada. So it's not enough to just create jobs. They want to create jobs for Canadians, quality jobs for Canadians. So you'll see that reflected in a lot of the funding structures in a way that in transparency, many people find annoying. We get asked all the time, is there grants out there that will allow me to hire an international worker or somebody on an international work permit? And the answer is almost, not always, but almost always no. The government is looking to create specific types of jobs. And that's not even actually something they're particularly secretive about, but it does cause frustration. Same thing with more experienced workers. A lot of the funding in the hiring space is for early career folks and or people in deep science, innovation, and research. So some other examples for you that are not considered fundable: marketing, that's often disappointing to people. We talked about commercialization being an emerging priority for the government. Marketing, we anticipate, could come more down the road. They had the Canada Digital Adoption Program recently. The large version of that was shut down. It wasn't particularly productive in the way they anticipated it would be. It created a big cottage industry of consultants, 750 consultants who were effectively getting paid 15 grand every time somebody used that program. So it didn't actually benefit companies that they intended to benefit with that program. It instead created an accidental cottage industry. So we're seeing a lot of the government's testing programs, seeing how the market responds to them, and then adjusting them as they need to. And I think that's in part due to that public scrutiny Aria mentioned. And then a few other examples, of course, debt repayment, your personal expenses, and buying a business, not funded by government grants. So those are things that are not funded. And there's so much that is, particularly for all of you in the innovation space. So why do I need to understand the projects that I'm looking to fund and those activities? Why do we spend so much time always in understanding this about your business? Why are we asking you these questions? Why do we often lead in our one-on-one conversations by asking you the question, where do you spend money in your business? What are the goals that you have? What do you need to invest in your business in order to achieve those goals? Well, the answer for that is, again, there's over 1,800 programs open in Canada. You may match to 173 of them, as an example. But maybe 3, if you're lucky, 3 will be immediately relevant or even near-term relevant for your business and a program you have a competitive chance of winning based on what you've built and the project that you're looking to pursue. So understanding that fundable activity component about your business is essential. It's a non-negotiable. You have to, or the government will not give you money, because just building a clean tech company isn't enough to get you funded. You have to be spending money on the right activities that the government is willing to subsidize to achieve the right outcomes. That is what's going to get you funded. We're going to offer you a couple of examples of fairly large innovation programs and projects that have been successful. So this is an agriculture clean technology program. It's a for-profit company won this one, $330,000 awarded to them. And it was a 2-year project to develop a site-based autonomous robotic system. And again, we know that ag is a big priority. So they wanted to provide a cohort of equity deserving farmers and farm workers in and through this. So it's a really interesting example of a project that was actually funded by a program. And then through the SIF Stream 1 R&D stream, $120,000 awarded to an Ontario-based for-profit for a 4-year project. So you're starting to see these numbers, 120 grand over 4 years. So do the math, about 30 grand a year. So just right sizing expectations here to develop an innovative process that involves combining injection molding processes with lightweighted, more environmentally friendly materials. So it's useful to see the horizons on these programs, the dollar values, but then the horizons. Because just getting approved for $120,000, it feels like what we all need to be aiming for. And it's important to understand that that will cover a portion of your costs in that year, most likely around any given project. So understanding how do I stack programs together, identify what costs can I cover with this program, what other programs can I access to cover those other fundable activities I know I need to invest in. Again, that activity component about your projects and your business is critical to help you be successful in capitalizing your potential of funding. Ari, I'm going to pass over to you to actually go over some specific programs with folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So first up, we're going to talk about one that most people have heard of, and that is the NRC's IRAP programs. It's actually been around for a while, I think even since the 40s in some form. And they really are there to help and support innovation companies, technology companies. One of the big traps that Pocketed absolutely fell into, we fell into this trap, was seeing IRAP as a funding body or a funding agency more so than an advisory and mentorship program. And it really is. And so really, it's all about you call IRAP, you get matched with an ITA, an industrial technology advisor. And that is your advisor, and you want to develop a relationship with that person. One, they're usually very experienced in the type of business that you are building, and um, they talk to companies across this space, and they can be incredibly supportive. And if you're going to them and asking for help, they often will show up. And so a great example for us was we are forever grateful for our IRAP ITA. And he actually helped us oversubscribe our alpha launch of Pocketed by reaching out to the companies that he was working with on our behalf and saying, you should give this a try. IRAP also does have core funding to help you build innovation. And so they will invest in your company if they really believe in what you're doing. They also have programs where they pay the bills for you. So rather than give your company cash, they pay for your legal fees to help protect your IP. They pay for you to work really closely with AI experts, across the Mila Foundation in Quebec. They'll pay for designers to come in and help you improve your product. And I mean, the security, the list is not even this short. But really, they have so many ways of supporting you. And so we really encourage beginning with a call to IRAP to get the ball rolling there, and then really asking for help from your advisor and mentor. Shred credits are probably one of the best known programs in Canada. Also been around in some form since the 40s, actually. So very, very cool. It funds, the federal tax credit funds about 35% of salaries and some materials that get consumed that you use in a given year for innovation as a tax credit. There's also then often provincial programs that up that percentage. And so for folks that are in BC like we are, this means that you get approximately 55% of salaries of BC-based innovation employees back for the hours that they're working on your innovation project. And sometimes even more. So if you're not doing this, call us. We want to help you with this. It's really important. The supercluster projects are huge. There are 6 superclusters across the country. Regardless of where you are, you can apply for funding at any of the locations. I want to highlight this one in particular. It just opened, and they are looking to help companies integrate AI into their products and innovation. So very, very cool programs. These programs, you can choose kind of the amount of money that you want to pour into it. They do about a 40% reimbursement. And this is where it's very important. You have to have a partner. It's a consortia. So at least 2 companies and at least one has to have under 500 employees. So here to support businesses like yours. My Tax is another great example of a collaboration. And one of the few programs that's not a reimbursement model. And so you put your matching funds in, and My Tax matches that sometimes 2 or 3 times what you put in. and actually pays for a postdoc or a PhD student to really work on that research with you. This can be across fields. My tax is really open to funding anything R&D with a registered university in Canada. There's a whole new class of clean economy investment tax credits that just got announced at the end of June. They have existed for a long time, but they really opened them up. And so what used to not be applicable at all now is. And so if you thought, on June 15th that you were not eligible for these tax credits, think again and take a good hard look at these because they did greatly expand them. And like all tax credits, they are entitlements. And so if you qualify, that money's yours. There's a lot of money for intellectual property right now. So to a lot of the things we've been talking about, commercialization and global competitiveness, the government wants you to have an IP strategy. They want you to be working on patents and trademarks and copyrights and really, doing that for Canada. You can get up to $100,000 if you were in Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. All of those programs, they are still open. Please give us a call if that's something you're interested in. It pays for 80% of your legal costs. Very, very cool. That same program is in BC, except that most of the streams have actually closed. And so this kind of just outlines how important it is to stay on top of the funding opportunities. And so very similar to the Ontario and Prairies program, one did exist here, and right now the only streams that are currently open are the mentorship and stream one planning, which is still great. If you're just getting your feet wet in IP, you should still get in on this.
Awesome. So folks, how do you set yourself up for success if you're an innovation company, you're looking for funding, and you're ready to move? Well, it starts with the research and preparation. We've talked already about the realities of understanding your business. So we encourage you to build your funding roadmap. And this is something that you can do on your own. We actually offer a free tool. Linda can drop a link for that in the chat. But build your funding roadmap. And the key components of this are understanding those projects and initiatives that you're looking to pursue over the next 12 to 24 months, sometimes even a longer time horizon if you're going after large programs that are hyper project specific. Be realistic about the timelines. When are you able to start a project? I talk to a lot of people right now. There's $125,000 up for grabs to improve your facilities for accessibility. Applications close July 23rd. So it's racing at people. And I'm hearing from so many companies, I know I need to do this work. I need to spend this money. I need to improve my facility. And I'm not ready to do that work until mid 2025. We get it. We understand. The government doesn't care that you're not ready until 2025. If you want that money, now is the only time. This is a one and done program. So it still behooves you to plan ahead and get your application in the queue so you have the funding by the time you're ready to pursue it in 2025. And then again, how does my project benefit Canada? What is the broader impact it's going to have around some of those economic priorities that Ari has talked about today? It also is helpful to understand and be pragmatic about your actual grants potential. Are you incorporated? Are you generating revenue? How much money did you generate in the last 12 months? Was it over 100K? Over 100 million? If it's over 100K, you've sized into a lot of programs. If it's over 100 million, you've sized out of a lot of programs. And do you have or are you hiring employees on payroll? And finally, do you have access to capital? Because again, if you don't have access to capital, you will likely not be able to meet the financial requirements of most programs that require you to actually spend the money and then wait to get reimbursed, as Aria outlined, or match dollar for dollar or $1 to $3 or whatever that structure might be. But you have to have some cash on hand that you can afford to invest while you're waiting for those timelines to get reimbursed. So once you understand your baseline potential, let's start thinking through how do I identify relevant programs? And that funding roadmap tool will help you do this on your own. You can also work with our grant specialists if you want support. But are you hiring in the next 12 months? How many hires? What types of positions? That will impact the grants that make sense to pursue for wage subsidies. Are you exporting outside of Canada? Are you investing in research and development or innovation? Are you pursuing any technology-focused projects? And are you training your team? If you answered yes to any of those questions, there absolutely are specific programs that make sense for you to be looking at right now. And those programs change. Programs come, they go, they have stated criteria and unstated criteria, which is part of what makes grants so freaking hard. And Pocketed helps you stay on top of all of it in one centralized place and is updated in real time. Our second tip for you is don't be afraid of partnerships and consortia, but definitely approach with caution. Think through the requirements, think through the obligations, think through the implications of sharing intellectual property with an academic institution, for example. Don't be afraid to negotiate on those contracts. Our law firm told us that they often are working with companies to renegotiate funding or contribution agreements with the government. So don't feel like you have to sign it exactly as is. It's okay to loop in your legal team to help support you on that. And there's IP funding that will help to cover some of those costs of working with your legal team. So this can help you access bigger programs. It can help you do more and do it faster. Building partnerships proactively with funders cannot be overstated as a value add for you. Building relationships with funders means that they will come to you and approach you and invite you to apply for specific programs. It means that they understand you and your business before you even submit an application. It gives them context. And that does matter in the funding landscape, particularly with certain funders. Aria mentioned IRAP already. They operate more like a venture fund than they do your traditional grant funding agency. So take the time to build a relationship, pitch them, show them that you said you did what you said you were going to do. You will earn opportunities. It took us 3 years of building a relationship with our IRAP ITA before we were offered any money. 3 years. So do not be afraid to start building a relationship. It's almost never too early, and be ready. Treat them like an investor. Build a relationship. Ask questions. They are there to support you. And this Canadian ecosystem does want to help you succeed, and they will open doors for you. So don't hesitate to lean on that. I've mentioned this already, but I'm going to say it again. I cannot scream this loudly enough. Optimize your SR&ED claim and stack it strategically with other funding opportunities. If you are claiming SR&ED, you are absolutely, without question, eligible for other programs, full stop. Yes, the hiring grants, the training grants, the grants that everyone's eligible to pursue, but also the grants that exist just for innovation. So if you claim SR&ED and you do not access other funding programs, you are leaving money on the table. When we launched Pocketed, we did not do SR&ED for our clients, and very quickly realized that we needed to support them with their SR&ED also to help them accomplish this optimization component. So our clients love working with us because we help you identify for any given project. What am I claiming here through SR&ED? What else am I funding through other programs? And it can be small programs and big programs, but there is so much opportunity for you if you're a SR&ED eligible company. I'll go back here for a second. If anyone is here and you're not super familiar with SR&ED, we are running an entire webinar that is only about SR&ED over the next number of weeks. We're doing an entire series around innovation funding. So we invite you to join us for some of those sessions as well. You may have noticed when we introduced IRAP, MyTax, SR&ED, we're doing very specific sessions on all of those programs to overcome some of the misunderstandings of those programs. You'll see invitations coming out for those programs as those sessions as they're being launched. So we definitely invite you to apply to join us for those. And then finally, you have 2 choices, period. Do the work or hire someone to do the work. But not pursuing this money should not be an option you are willing to consider. We understand that as founders, you're busy. Sometimes it's your first time applying for a program. Sometimes it's a program that is really large or complex. Those are great use cases for when it makes sense for you to hire a grant writer. For small programs or when you're really early stage, we see the value in doing it yourselves. And we're actually building technology at Pocketed that's deploying later this year that will help you do that on your own more successfully and much more quickly. In the meantime, do not hesitate to work with grant specialists. We talked about the increased competition. Even programs you may have been successful pursuing on your own before, we're seeing companies be unsuccessful now. So don't wait until the last minute. Start working with grant specialists. The other thing we notice is that oftentimes they will save you time by telling you when you really are not competitive for a program. And you don't have time to wait. So the way that we can support you there, yes, our software, which we're going to offer a code for all of you to have access to totally for free, is a self-serve tool. It will help you stay on top of programs, find the right ones for you to pursue, but it does require your critical thinking, your time and energy, and for you to check it regularly. It does not do the work for you without you putting in the effort, period. We also offer our concierge solution, which is exclusively available to highly eligible companies, highly fundable companies. And if you are in this category, we would welcome the chance to speak with you about how this works. We offer a funding guarantee. And we work with you where our team uses the software for you. Our team is curating programs for you to pursue and then supporting you through the end-to-end process with our grant writing services. And whether you're a subscriber or not, you can and should be accessing our grant writing. So we have a team of expert grant writers and shred consultants that will support you with every type of program you can imagine. They come from various research backgrounds and academic backgrounds and business backgrounds to help you be successful in competing for this money. So lots of ways that you can engage with Pocketed. Aria, do you want to maybe walk through a few examples? And folks, we are going to open up the Q&A and once Aria's through some examples for you, and would love to be able to answer any questions that we can today.
Absolutely. So a couple of case studies. And so I think this is a great example of lots of things we were talking about. It's value chain, it's logistics, it's supply chain. So this is a technology company that's really looking to make their product more efficient and do all sorts of new things. And so they invested in the development of this technology, and they were able to get over $65,000 back. And then they want to take this technology out of Canada. And so, yes, they're logistics and it funds within Canada. Part of those logistics are moving Canadian products into foreign markets. And so they were also able to stack from that shred claim with an additional $10,000 in market expansion funding to get them out there. And so really achieving a bunch of goals. They got, a better product, more innovation, and they got that into a new market to expand their revenue and opportunity. Another client of ours is a clean tech company. So again, they are claiming that shred credit. We can't stress this enough. If you're doing innovation and research and development, talk to us about shred. It is an entitlement. And so they were able to claim shred every single year, but also, many hands make light work. And so one of the best ways to speed up everything that you're doing in your business is to hire more people. And people are generally one of most new companies' biggest costs. And so we were actually able to secure them wage subsidies to help them build out their team, make more hires than they would have as quickly as possible. And so, that's given them a great start, and they're on track for a fourth market expansion grant in 3 years. And so keep coming back. The other one, this is actually a well-known company in the safety space. They have a software, hardware hybrid product. And same thing, they really took this world by storm. They won a large corporate competition. So yes, it's grants and tax credits. It's also competitions and other incentives. So over $125,000 in a competition. And they're pursuing manufacturing grants, shred, of course, and always funding their hires with those wage subsidies. So keep, really to build a business, there are so many pools of funding to access here.
Yeah, so Aria, thanks for sharing those. I think it's helpful to see companies that may look like you, but I also recognize this is only a small selection of our clients that we've shown you here to give you some examples of different ways different types of companies are leveraging funding and stacking it together. But it is not an exhaustive list. So if you're curious about more information about what funding is available for you, I see some questions already here in the chat, and I'm going to get there in a moment, but we're always happy to support you. We do and are thrilled to offer a code to give all of you access to a free Pocketed subscription. So you can use the code Innovation Hustle 2024, and that's going to get you a free year or access to Pocketed's basic software totally free. So please, we encourage you to use it. If you have an account already, you will need to apply the code to your account. We can always support you with instructions on how to do that. If you can't figure it out on your own, reach out to our team at hello@hellopocketed.io. So without further ado, we've started to see a few questions come in, and we very much welcome folks to ask more questions, but we'll start with the ones that we see here. So the first one, and I'm not going to go necessarily in order, but we're seeing a question around, can I apply for concierge with revenue between $10,000 and $100,000? And the answer is yes. Most innovation companies are going to spend a lot more money than you make for a very long time, and we get it. We're no exception. So absolutely, the amount of revenue that you generate is less representative of your grant's potential than the amount of capital you have to deploy and spend on fundable activities. So what do I mean by that? You may only generate $50,000 in revenue, but if you raised $1 million round or a multi-million-dollar equity round, where you have access to your own investments into your company as a founder, your own savings or debt, a line of credit, however you're funding your business, if you have access to capital, that you plan and are spending on fundable activities in your business, you are likely highly eligible within the innovation space. So again, I say likely because that asterisk matters a lot. It depends a lot, again, on how you're spending money. So the answer is absolutely. You're welcome to reach out to us for a conversation about concierge. And our team will work with you to assess whether or not it makes sense for you to pursue that, or if using software and finding programs on your own is the right place for you to be right now. Just looking here as well. Aria, we're seeing a question here. How do you know if you qualify for either R&D or commercialization? Do you want to maybe talk even just about that R&D side? And I'm happy to jump in on the commercialization piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So a key component to kind of consider if your R&D would qualify is it risky? Is there a chance that it is going to fail? You think that these techniques and this process and this science will work, but it's yet untested. And so you could be wrong. And it could be based on very strong hypotheses and all of your experience in your grad school or not. But there needs to be an element of risk. And so as an example of things that are not R&D is if you are making an app for a phone that, none of the components are new or novel, you're not applying a new technique, the government's going to have a harder time funding that. If it has these new techniques, new integrations, you're incorporating AI aspects into it, there's a chance that it's not going to work out the way that you really thought it was. It likely qualifies as R&D. And then once you kind of have that R&D, you move over to the commercialization side. So I'll let Brianna kind of tell you more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So building technology is important, but then we need to make sure that we have a market, customers and product market fit. So are there people that actually want to buy the solution that you built to solve the problems that you set out to solve? And that is where the commercialization piece comes in. So there's so many layers of that when you're in the innovation space and life sciences, for example. There's a million and one, that's exact math, numbers of approval stages with regulations and different licensing. And sometimes you'll access funding to support with those components of commercialization. Other times it's literally about sales and marketing. How am I making sure that I'm getting my product in front of the right customers? And oftentimes you're going to see that funding show up in a less obvious way where you're not going to get $50,000 to spend on a marketing project, but you may be able to access grants to subsidize hiring marketers to help you build out that content and build out your strategy around marketing, for example. So commercialization will help you go from I have built a product to making sure you're getting it into the hands of the right customers. And I think in any entrepreneurial journey, it can be really dangerous to just build quietly and silently, cut off from your customers. The faster you can validate, and I recognize it's not universally true in certain industries and subsectors like life sciences, but you want to be validating that what you're building is going to solve a problem and that there's people willing to buy it as early in your development journey as you can. For example, with Pocketed, we oversubscribed our alpha before we wrote a single line of code. And that's not unique to Pocketed. So it's a great way to be scrappy before you're spending money on building. And there's a lot of ways you can do that, whether it's throwing up a landing page and having a keyword experiment to drive folks to that landing page that you think are your ideal customer and seeing whether or not they submit their information, they express interest, and then you can funnel them through your own marketing flows. So you have customers even before you've built your product. And again, not a universally true example, but certainly a very low stakes experiment that most of us have the resources to do using technology that's available today. Aria, one other thing that I think would be useful for you to maybe talk about here is around technology readiness levels. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so Canada actually has a very prescribed, and I don't have the definitions for all the levels memorized, but there's a system, and so you'll often hear people say a TRL level, so that's technology readiness level. And one is really conceptual, all the way up to 10, which is fully in the world, commercialized, high throughput, high functioning, very developed out. And there's a spectrum in between. And different grants will actually target different sections of the TRL level or the TRLs. And so it's not generally that it's like this is for TRL 1 or 2 or 3. It's like, oh, this is for 1 to 3. This is for 4 to 7. This is 7 to 10 or 9. And so it really is the spectrum. And so it's very important that you understand and be honest with yourself about where along the TRL you are today. And let's remember that everything starts at a one. And so it is not a bad thing to say, I'm at a one or a two right now. I'm going to find grants and opportunities for that level. And then as you progress up, different opportunities become available to you. So understanding that system, something your IREP ITA could do with you as well, is to really help you figure out where you are and justify that for future grant opportunities. Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
I saw a
Thanks,
question
Aria.
here, Brianna, just a little bit out that I think you could probably speak to, but what are some examples of commercialization grants and how people could use them?
Yeah, Chevy, thanks for the question. I know, yes, please do submit questions to the Q&A, but I'm happy to answer the one. There's a whole bunch, and it really depends on what commercialization layer you're at. So I mentioned already that if you're in a life sciences, you're building some sort of pharmaceutical, your process to get to commercialization is so much longer. There's way more hurdles and barriers for you to get through and over in order to get to the point of selling your product. So you've got FDA approvals and various things. So that journey is going to look very different. And there's a whole subset of programs that will fund and subsidize those activities. Many of them rolled into project funding. So what you'll see is that will be a bullet under eligible fundable activities for that larger scale program. So that's not uncommon, Chevy, is that you're looking for programs that are funding an overall project and have a bullet or a series of bullets around commercialization. They might be related to regulatory approvals. It might be related to building up marketing, employing marketers. It might be related to actual sales investments. It could be things like working with your trade commissioner on expanding relationships in an international market. You also see IP funding. Commercialization requires you to have good contracts so that you don't get yourself in trouble. And IP funding certainly helps with that. It's designed to be intellectual property, but having solid contracts is a big part of that. And we've historically leveraged a lot of that funding to make sure our contracts were tight and protected our intellectual property as we were going to market, bringing on customers, and protected our customers and their intellectual property as well. So that's another totally different spin on commercialization funding. In BC, a BC Fast Pilot, which again helps you actually pilot in a commercial way the technology that you've built. There is money that is specific to ag that's quite similar. Export funding, so again, can export, actually helping you go to market in a brand new market. So there's a ton of different ways you can see that apply. Plus, large funders like IRAP have been piloting brand new commercialization programs. So when you build a project description, if you've ever applied for IRAP before, their research projects, you build a research plan. You have a whole proposal around that research project. It's quite similar when you're doing the commercialization one, but focused on your key performance indicators around showing growth, revenue growth, customer acquisition, your conversion metrics, your funnel metrics, all of the things that you would expect when you're actually taking your product to market. So it's a whole, those are a number of ways, Chevy, you can think about various government funding programs for commercialization. And from your specific use case, feel free to reach out to our team, and where appropriate, we're happy to direct you by email and or offer you a consultation, which is a paid service that we offer as well if you want support more one-on-one. Karina's asking about the offshore problem. We ran the numbers, and even with tax credits and grants, we saved more by adding to our R&D team with offshore specialists than by hiring locally. Do we help with these types of decisions before a project starts to ensure we're picking the route that's most beneficial to the company? Ari, I'll jump on this one and then invite you to share your own comments as well. But Karina, it's a totally fair point. It doesn't always make sense to work with domestic talent, and that just is what it is given the cost of living in Canada. Full stop. You have to make the best decision for your business. And it's interesting because when we talk to people, we often we've often worked with founders that are, early stage and they're about to incorporate, and they're asking us, where should I incorporate? And we will offer them one data point to consider in that decision, which is this is the concentration of funding in your province, for example, or any given province that you may be able to access. But that should only ever be one decision, one data point in your decision-making process. We absolutely don't encourage people to do things just to get grants. And Karina, your question is so beautifully put, because we do see people try to fit a square peg into a round hole, and that's dangerous. Grants can be distracting, and making sure that it actually serves your bigger goals as a business, that it's a project you meaningfully need to pursue to achieve your goals. That is an important part of how we work with our clients. And we, through our concierge program, certainly do work alongside our clients on that. And for many of our clients, we've even done comparative analysis on different programs that will fund similar projects to figure out which one is the best one to pursue, which ones are stackable, which ones aren't. And that can often be based on some basic things like, what is the approval timeline? What is the application process? What is the cost to apply if I'm working with a grant writer? What is the payout structure? What is the reporting obligation? Because it doesn't just end with getting your application submitted and that contribution agreement signed. You have obligations to that funder for a defined amount of time to meet the reporting obligations and receive your funding. So yes, in short, to answer your question, absolutely. We work often with our clients on making the right decisions for their business, and we can't make those decisions for you. So our job is to provide you with information and help you put that in context of your overall goals as a business. I'm seeing a question here, Aria, that I'm going to pass over to you. I've applied twice for SDTC funding before it was closed down. How different, if at all, will an application be vetted by the newer NRC IRAP version? Aria, you want to chat about this?
Sure. So SDTC is going to be under NSERC, not IRAP, but they're both related to ISED. So a lot of acronyms and a lot of people in there. We expect the applications to be very similar, but NSERC has been around for a long time, as has ISED, and so they have really defined ways of adjudication. We might even see, I would expect to see increased levels of transparency, more feedback, panels, all sorts of things. And SDTCs are very, very competitive. So this is definitely one that we would recommend having a professional look at to increase the chances of a competitive application. Really exciting program. And so we're very happy to see that it wasn't shut down. It was just moved over to a different body to keep funding that really important work there.
Yeah, absolutely. And a note on this funder is for anyone that is interested in pursuing an SDTC application, Aria, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is an example of the type of program you cannot do with a grant writer if there is any success-based component, meaning it has a project fee that you will have to pay up front. It is not allowed. You will be disqualified by the funder if you work with somebody who is offering to write it for you on success. Do not work with them. You will be disqualified.
Yeah, totally true. And they've made that exceedingly clear. So there should be no nuance
precisely
here.
9 places in their applicant guide.
Yes. No contingency fees at all.
No, not at all. So it looks like we're through our questions. Folks, if you do have other questions that come up for you, please reach out to our team, hello@hellopocketed.io. Our support team is available to you and will help to direct you to the right resources to get answers to your questions where we can't answer them directly. And we certainly hope to welcome some of you to Concierge. Happy to chat about Shred and those interactions between Shred and grants and how you can make sure you're optimizing both. So please reach out. Thank you for spending time with us today. Take advantage of this free account and keep an eye on your inbox for invitations to some of our upcoming sessions that dive deeply into specific programs around innovation funding. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.